Hi everybody, the Home Service Pro here. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to change a thermocouple in a Miller mobile home furnace. Had a customer call, they can't get the pilot to light, so we're going to get that thermocouple changed out. Let's get after it. Okay guys, so the first thing you're going to want to do is remove the cover off the furnace. As you can see, this particular cover is all one panel. So right at the top here, we have this little knob here. Give that a quarter of a turn. It'll come out toward you, and you might have to wiggle it back and forth, but lift on it, and the whole door comes right off. I'm just going to go ahead and set this to the side. And this is what the inside of the furnace looks like here. So down here at the bottom is where my burner is at and my thermocouple. I'm going to go ahead and get the camera set up down low there, and we'll go ahead and get that burner pulled out of there and get the thermocouple swapped out. I'll be right back. Okay guys, now that we got that cover off, this is the burner chamber area. So this right here is my gas valve. You can see this coil of copper here. That's actually the thermocouple there. We're going to remove all of these screws around this burner. We're going to pull that whole burner assembly out to us. But the first thing you want to do is up here on these modular home furnaces. You can see that switch right there. We want to make sure we switch the furnace to off. Now that the furnace is switched to off, we're going to come down here. And you can see there's a gas valve back here. We're going to go ahead and shut the gas off to the unit. So now the gas is off. So now we're safe to go ahead and remove the gas connector. We're going to actually disconnect it right here. And we're going to disconnect it from right here and get this whole gas whip right out of our way so it's not in our way anymore. So let me grab a couple of wrenches and we'll get that out of the way. So most of the time these gas valves in the gas line itself isn't super secure on these modular homes. So you can see how I'm wiggling that around. So you're going to want to hold back up on this so you're not twisting the whole thing from down below. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect this one down here first. And then we'll go ahead and get the other one. I'm going to lower my camera down just a little bit so you can see what I'm doing a little better. There we go. Let's get this pulled up out of the way like that. Wrench adjusted. There we go. That's broke loose. Usually these gas whips, once you get them broke loose, you can just completely loosen them up by hand. You just got to break them loose, and when you're tightening it up, again, you can tighten it all the way up by hand. You just have to snug it up with a wrench. So now I'm going to go ahead, you know what, I don't think we need to disconnect this side. I'm just going to take this whip and I'm just going to pull it up and swing it up out of our way. That was the whole reason for disconnecting that, is just to get it out of the way. So when we pull this burner assembly, it can come straight out without hitting that gas line. So I got that side all disconnected. Now we're going to go ahead and start taking these screws out of the burner assembly itself. So let me grab a screwdriver. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect these two wires. There's only two spots for wires to go on there. It doesn't matter if you get them reversed or not. It's just 24 volts, so either way, it doesn't matter which way you hook them up. When you hook them back up, it's going to be fine. So I'm going to go ahead and swing those out of the way. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and start removing these screws. One more screw here, and we'll be able to pull that whole assembly right out of there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and back that camera up a little bit. There we go. So now you can just grab right a hold of the gas valve. You lift it up just a little bit, and the whole burner assembly with the pilot assembly and all of that will come right on out. So this is our pilot here. You can see the thermocouple sticking through. So when the flame burns It burns up, goes across this thermocouple and heats that thermocouple up, and that's what's keeping it comes over here to the gas valve and keeps that gas valve open. If the pilot goes out, it shuts the gas valve so no gas can flow, so we're not just dumping gas directly into that burner chamber without a flame. So next thing we're going to do is I'm going to get repositioned here. We're going to disconnect the thermocouple from here. We'll pull the thermocouple out of the pilot assembly and put a new one in. So I'll get repositioned. I'll be right back. Okay guys, so once we get it to this point, the first thing we're going to want to do is we got to remove this little brass nut. We back that out, and it's going to come out of the gas valve. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of get this thermocouple just kind of bent back out of the way there so I can get my wrench onto this nut a little easier. So get the wrench adjusted. There we go. And then you just simply turn that nut, back it out. Once you get it loose, you should be able to pull it out by hand. There we go. And as you can see, this is the end that goes up into the gas valve. Okay, so the next thing we got to do is you can see where this goes through this heat shield here, right there. There's a screw right there. We got to pull that screw. It'll pull that out of the way so we can remove the thermocouple through the heat shield. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen that screw up and get that out of the way. There we go, that screws out. I'm going to pull this little heat shield off from there. There we go. And as you can see, that kind of opens up a hole here through to the other side. Now I'm going to go ahead and flip this around. This is the pilot assembly here, where the thermocouple goes behind this little heat shield here. So we got to remove this heat shield to be able to get to the thermocouple. If you turn this around, you can see there's two screws here on the bottom of the pilot assembly. That will release the pilot assembly and this heat shield both at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and set this down for just a second, grab a screwdriver. There we go. Okay, and these are, on this one, this is a 5/16 nut. So I got a 5/16 nut runner here. I'm going to go ahead and loosen these two screws up. There's one. And there's the second one. Now, this heat shield should be loose, so we can just literally slide that forward and up and just get it right out of our way. All right, so the old thermocouple here, it just gets pushed through this bracket here. The pilot burns up across the thermocouple. You can see that thermocouple is in pretty rough shape there. So all we're going to do is simply, we should be able to just pull. There's a little clip here. I don't know if you see that in the video or not, but there's a little clip here that locks that thermocouple into place. We should be able to just pull the thermocouple right back out of that bracket. There we go, just like that. Okay, then we just simply grab back here and we're just going to pull the old thermocouple right out. So we got the old thermocouple removed. This is the whole thermocouple there. I'll go ahead and get the new thermocouple, and we'll get the new thermocouple reinstalled. I'll be right back. All right, guys, so here's the new thermocouple that we're going to install. There's a bunch of different brands of thermocouples. I do recommend this brand. Resideo is a good brand. So this is a 30-inch thermocouple. They come in a bunch of different sizes. Every different unit's going to take a little bit different size. However, if let's say this unit needs an 18-inch thermocouple and we have a 30, it's going to work. That's why that was kind of coiled up on the outside there. We're going to do the same thing again because this one's going to be a little bit long for this one, but it works just fine. So let's go ahead and get this guy unpackaged and we'll get it installed. All right, so here's the new thermocouple out of the package. I'm just going to simply straighten this out just a little bit so we can go ahead and send that through into, through the gas valve and up into the pilot assembly there. So as you can see also with this one here, it's got this nut here. You can't take that off because it comes up and hits the thermocouple right there. You can just slide this back and leave this dangling. It's not going to hurt a thing. It's because this is a universal one, and sometimes you need this and sometimes you don't. And in this particular case, we don't need to use that. So we're going to go ahead and shove our thermocouple back through this little window here, back out to our pilot assembly. And we're going to go ahead and line the thermocouple right up. I don't know if you can see that or not, but you got the two holes here. You got one here, and then you have another one up in the front, and then you have that little clip that you got to push that through. So we're going to get that lined right up there through those holes, and you just push it right up through until it stops right there. And now that it's up in there, we should be able to let go of that, and it should stay there in place for us. So now we're going to go ahead and put that heat shield back on. Got the heat shield here. On the bottom, you can see those two holes where the two screws went in. So we're going to go ahead and put this heat shield right back on just like this. And we're going to push this down, and we're going to go ahead and get these couple of screws back into this heat shield. I'm going to flip this over so we can get those holes lined up on the bottom. There we go. Get our two screws started back in here. Go ahead and tighten those right up. There's that one. And there we go. So now our heat shield is back into place. You can see our thermocouple is out past where the flame is going to hit, so we know that the thermocouple is going to be in the flame. Now we're going to go ahead and put that heat shield back on, back here. So you can see right here in this little heat shield, you can see there's a little notch in there. Let me see if I can get that a little closer. You can see that little notch. We just need to get that thermocouple to where it's sitting in the notch like that. And then the cover that goes over it, you can see it has a couple of notches in it too, one for the pilot and one for the thermocouple. So now we're just going to take the two of them, and we're going to take these notches and line them up with one another and just slide it up over top of the thermocouple and the pilot assembly. And then now that hole is lined up, so now we just got to put our screw back in there to hold that in place. Set that down just for a second so I can put my screwdriver back together here. Okay, now we're just going to tighten that screw up to tighten that heat shield back into place. There we go. So now that's all tightened in. Now we're going to bring our thermocouple. You can see I just kind of had that wrapped up and around. I'm going to go ahead and bring that back around over in the front here. And I'm going to turn it sideways like this just to make it a little easier to work on. Now we've got to get this nut here tightened into the hole in the gas valve. So we just got to turn, we got to kind of bend this thermocouple around. That's where we're kind of getting lined up there. I'm going to go ahead and extend this out just a little bit like that. So now I can just take and push that right into the into the gas valve. And we're just going to take that nut and start tightening it up by hand. Once you get it tightened up as far as you can by hand, then you're going to get that wrench back on there and just give it a little bit of a, you just got to get it snug. You don't have to get it super tight. Just get it to where it's a little snug there so it doesn't pop out. And now that thermocouple is reinstalled. I'm going to go ahead and just bend this thermocouple back like that just so it's kind of up out of our way. We do have to put all these screws back in, so you got to make sure you have that out of the way there. So now we're ready to reinstall the gas valve and the burner assembly back in to the furnace. So let me get the camera repositioned and we'll get this guy put back in. I'll be right back. All right, so we have the camera moved back into position here. So let's go ahead and get this burner reinstalled. So all we got to do is get the burner set up into place and get that up over top of that. If then once you get it up in there, you just got to line your screw holes back up and put your screws back in, tighten them down. So let me go ahead and get that done. Get repositioned here. Okay. Once you get like 2 of these screws lined up, the rest of them you can kind of hold. It'll kind of hold it in place for you, so you don't have to hold it while you're trying to run the screws in. Go ahead and get this one just snugged up a little bit so I can let go of that. Put the rest of the screws back in here. And you can pick those thermocouples up at just about any hardware, any of the big box stores, any place like Hardware's and that, they'll have multiple different kinds of thermocouples in different sizes. And most of them are pretty universal, and you can use them in just about anything. Two more screws. Last one. Oops. All right, so all the screws are back in it now. So now I'm going to take these 2 wires, and again, I got 2 terminals here on the gas valve. It doesn't matter which wire goes on which. So go ahead and put these wires back on. There we go. So now our gas valve is hooked back up. Now all we got to do is get this gas line rehooked up. So I'm going to bring that gas line back down and around. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and get this tightened up by hand. And these gas whips, if you look at the instructions on them, you do not need to use pipe dope, Teflon tape, or anything else because of the type of seal that they are. They're a friction seal. So now I'm going to go ahead and get my wrenches back on that. Just give that a little snug. There we go. Get that back out of the way. Okay, so the last step is lighting the pilot. Let me get some stuff around and I'll be right back. All right, guys, so the only things that we have left to do is we got to turn, remember that gas valve that's over here? We're going to go ahead and turn that gas valve on. With all gas valves, if your handle is in line with the pipe up and down, that means it's on. If it's across the pipe, that means it's off. So I just turned it to the on position. Get this back up here. So what I'm going to do, just so I can show you guys, so you can see a little bit clearer, is this door. You got to open this door, and you got to get a lighter and or a long match in here to light that pilot. Just because I'm trying to film and I want to stay out of your guys' way, I'm going to go ahead and take these 2 screws off, and I'm going to remove this door just to get it out of my way so I don't have to hold that door open while I'm trying to video. So I'm just going to simply remove these 2 screws right here to take this door off. You do not need to do this to light the pilot. I'm just doing it so I can make it to where you guys can see a little better as to what I'm doing. All right, there we go. So that door is now out of the way. So I'm going to bring you up in there, and as you can see, there's no pilot burning in there right now. So in order to light this pilot on this unit, you've got to, down here on your gas valve, you got this little lever here. And there is written instructions on all furnaces up in fact, I'll take you up here real quick. And if you look at that right there, that's lighting instructions on how to light the pilot. But I'll go ahead and walk you through it. All right, so the first thing we want to do is I'm going to use, like, it's a long lighter to light the pilot. A lot of these units come with a piece of wire that you stick a match on. You light the match, shove it back in there to light it. But it's a lot easier if you can get one of these that are long enough. So all you do is you take this lever here, you're gonna go ahead and push it. You gotta, when it's down in the off position like it is right now, you gotta push it in and then up. And you can see that this button here moves in and out. So the next step you're gonna do is you're gonna go ahead and push this all the way up into this position here, and then you wanna get your lighter in there, and the pilot should light right up for us. Now, I did get the pilot lit. I'll bring the camera around over here. You can see back in there, you can see the flame is running now. You gotta hold this lever here for about 30 seconds to keep that pilot going. So when I let off from this, here in just a second, you'll see, I'll take the camera back up in there, and as long as that pilot is still running, then we know that the thermocouple is good and it's doing its job. So let me go ahead and, I'm gonna go ahead and let off from this. Let's bring the camera back up in here. And as you can see, our pilot is still running, so that tells me that the new thermocouple is working the way it's supposed to. Now, we're gonna go ahead and move this gas valve just because I have it all opened up so you can kind of see what goes on in there. So from this point, you're gonna go ahead and just switch that down one step, and as you can see, my burner kicked right on because there is a call for heat on the furnace itself. I just accidentally bumped that switch there. There we go. So I got my gas, or my power onto the furnace. The gas valve fires right up. And so from this point, it's gonna go ahead and heat up for a little bit. Once it heats up, it's gonna go ahead and turn my blower on, and that's how we get the heat into the house. So I'm gonna go ahead and shut this back off for a minute. I'm gonna shut my switch off up here, just to shut that flame off for a minute. I'm gonna put my door back on that I took off. It's just those two screws, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this guy put back on here. Let me get my other screw back on there. Get both of these tight. And again, you do not need to remove this door to light that pilot. I only did that just so I could kind of show you guys what I was doing. So I'll go ahead and open that door back up here. And as you can see back in there, our pilot is still running. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch the switch back up top here. And I'm just toggling that switch up here that I showed you guys earlier. So I'll go ahead and turn that back on. And as you can see by looking in there, our burner is running now. We'll go ahead and let this run for just a few minutes and make sure that our blower comes on. It usually takes anywhere from 45 seconds to 60 seconds, give or take, for the burner chamber to warm up enough to turn our blower on. Now, they haven't had heat in here in a while, so it's down to about 40 degrees, so it might take a little bit longer to warm up because there's a thermal disc up in there that as the flame is running, it heats that thermal disc up. When that thermal disc gets up to, I think it's 140 degrees, it snaps closed and turns our blower on. So depending on how cold it is, it may take a little bit longer for that blower to turn on. But it does have a safety on it, so if something happens and the blower motor is not good, it will go ahead and shut the gas valve off and shut the unit down if it overheats. And there's our blower. Okay guys, so the only thing we have left to do is put our cover back on. We'll get that set on there. Give our knob a quarter turn. As you can see, this does have an arrow on it here. It's kind of like shaped like an arrow. If the arrow is up, we know we're locked on. So there you go guys, we got the thermocouple replaced. The furnace is working the way it's supposed to. If you found this video, please like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us grow. We really appreciate it. Have a great day, and remember, you got this. We'll see you on the next one, guys. Thanks.